The night was colder than usual, the kind of chill that seeps through concrete and into the bones. Rainwater trickled down broken gutters, pooling beneath flickering streetlights that painted the alleyway in trembling shades of yellow. Among the cardboard boxes and rusted trash cans, a small figure lay curled up, wrapped in what looked like an old, torn blanket. Her breathing was shallow, her hands tucked close to her face as if protecting the last bit of warmth she had left. Ethan's car slowed to a stop. He wasn't supposed to be there. His route home from a company's charity gala never crosses part of the city, but tonight his mind was too crowded, his heart too heavy to go straight home. He'd told his driver to take the long way, needing silence, not applause. But when his headlights caught that frail movement beside the trash, something in him froze. He stepped out. The smell of wet asphalt and decay filled the air. His shoes splashed in a puddle as he approached. There, beneath a torn banner that once advertised a grand opening, lay a girl, maybe 16, maybe younger. Mud streaked her cheek. Her lips trembled, whispering something inaudible. Ethan crouched, his expensive coat dragging against the ground. "Hey, are you okay?" No answer, just a faint breath that fogged the cold night air. He hesitated. He'd seen poverty before, on screens, in statistics, at charity events where emotions were served with champagne. But this was different. This was real. It had a heartbeat. The girl flinched when his hand reached out, instinctively pulling her blanket tighter. "Please, don't take it," she murmured. Ethan's throat tightened. "I'm not taking anything. I want to help." Her eyes opened slowly, the reflection of the streetlight dancing in them like glass marbles. She looked afraid, but also tired beyond her years. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lily," she whispered. Her voice cracked like dry paper. He glanced around. The alley was silent except for the dripping of rain. "Lily, you can't stay here. It's freezing. You'll get sick." She shook her head, clutching her thin blanket tighter. "Nowhere else to go." Ethan swallowed. He felt something stir in him. Guilt, maybe, or shame. He had a penthouse with 10 rooms he never used, yet here was a child who didn't even have a roof. He removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders. It looked like a mansion swallowing her small frame. Her eyes widened slightly at the warmth. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, voice trembling. He smiled faintly. "Because someone should." The moment hung there, fragile, human, the kind of moment that silently tests the walls people build around their hearts. Ethan looked down the dark street, then back at her. "Come on, let's get you somewhere safe. There's a shelter nearby." Lily hesitated again. Trust wasn't something she gave easily, but exhaustion won. She nodded, just once. Ethan extended his hand, and for a second, her small fingers hovered in the air, uncertain, then finally slipped into his. The world kept raining, but for that moment, it didn't feel quite as cold. The car's heater hummed softly as the city lights blurred past a window. Lily sat quietly in the back seat, her small hands gripping the edge of Ethan's coat that still rested over her shoulders. Every so often, she glanced at him, cautious, unsure if his kindness was real or just another trick the world played on her. Ethan noticed. "You're safe now," he said gently. "I promise." Lily didn't answer. Promises were words she'd heard before, from people who disappeared when things got hard. She looked out the window again. The rain had stopped, but the sky still wept faintly through the glass. The shelter stood at the corner of an old district, a modest brick building with a fading sign that read Grace Haven. A tired-looking woman opened the door as Ethan approached, her eyes widening when she saw him. "Mr. Hayes, what brings you?" He cut her off softly. "She needs a bed. Tonight." The woman nodded, leading Lily inside. Warm light spilled from the hallway, and for the first time in a long while, Lily felt something close to safety. Ethan stood by the door, unsure whether to stay or go. He'd done his part, hadn't he? But something about the way Lily clutched his coat made him linger. "Do you have anyone we can call?" the woman asked. Lily shook her head. "No one." Ethan's chest ached. He wanted to ask more, but her eyes, those hollow, tired eyes, told him enough. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "If you need anything at all, I'll cover it," he told the woman. When he turned to leave, a faint voice called out, "Thank you." He paused. Lily's words were barely audible, but they carried something raw, gratitude mixed with disbelief. Ethan smiled faintly and nodded before stepping back into the rain. That night, he couldn't sleep. The image of that alley haunted him, the way she curled up like a forgotten child of the world. He had built empires, donated millions, and worn smiles to cameras, yet he had never felt so small. The next morning, he returned. Lily was sitting in the common room, sipping soup from a paper cup. Her hair was cleaner now, her face softer under the shelter's light. "You came back," she said quietly, almost like she didn't believe it. "I said I would," Ethan replied. "How are you feeling?" She shrugged. "Better, I guess." He sat across from her. "Lily, do you remember how long you've been out there?" She hesitated. "A while. Since Mom left." Her voice broke on the word Mom. She said she'd come back, but she never did. Ethan's heart twisted. "And your father?" "Don't know him," she said simply, eyes lowering to the floor. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words failed him. Instead, he reached for his wallet, then stopped himself. Money wouldn't fix this. Not this time. He leaned forward. "Would you like to have lunch with me today?" Her brows knit. "Why?" "Because no one should eat alone," he said softly. Lily studied him for a long moment, as though trying to decide if she could trust the sincerity in his eyes. Finally, she nodded. Ethan smiled. But deep inside, he felt something heavier, a realization that maybe he was the one being saved here. The cafe they went to was quiet, the kind of place where the smell of coffee seemed to hug you before anyone else could. Ethan chose a corner table by the window, away from the noise. Lily sat across from him, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass of water as if unsure whether she truly belonged there. A waitress approached with a polite smile. The usual "Mr. Hayes." Ethan nodded, then turned to Lily. "You can order anything you like." Her eyes flickered between the menu and his face. "Anything." "Anything," he assured. After a long pause, she whispered, "Just soup and maybe bread." He smiled faintly. "You can have more than that, you know." "I'm not used to more." Her words hit him harder than he expected. For someone who spent his life surrounded by abundance, the idea of someone being unfamiliar with enough felt cruelly poetic. As they waited, Ethan found himself studying her. Beneath the dirt that had once masked her face was a fragile beauty, not the kind that turned heads, but the kind that told stories. There were scars, too, small and faded, like the map of a life that had never been gentle. "Do you go to school, Lily?" She shook her head. "I used to. Before Mom lost a job, then we couldn't pay rent. We moved from place to place until there was nowhere left." Ethan's jaw clenched. "How old are you?" 17, I think." He leaned back, silent for a moment. The waitress returned with steaming soup and a sandwich. Lily waited until Ethan nodded before eating. Every spoonful seemed hesitant, cautious joy mixed with disbelief. When she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes. "I forgot what warm food tasted like." Ethan looked down, his throat tightening. He'd spent fortunes on things that meant nothing, and here sat a girl whose entire world could change with a bowl of soup. "Lily," he began carefully, "what if I could help you, not just tonight, but for good? Would you let me?" Her spoon froze midway. "Help me how?" "I have connections, people who run shelters, schools, programs. You deserve a chance." Her eyes widened. "Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." "Because someone once did it for me," he said quietly. "I wasn't always the man people think I am." She tilted her head, curiosity breaking through the fear. "What do you mean?" Ethan hesitated. The air between them softened, pulling the truth closer. "When I was a kid, I lost everything too. My mother worked in a factory, my father left. There was a man, a stranger, who helped us. I promised myself that someday, if I ever had the chance, I'd do the same for someone else." Lily's expression changed. For the first time, she saw not a billionaire, but a person who understood what it meant to fall. "Maybe that's why you found me," she said softly. Ethan smiled, a tired, genuine smile that came from somewhere deep. Maybe it is. For a while, they sat in silence, both lost in thought stitched by fate. Outside, the rain began again, tapping gently on the window as if blessing the quiet. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. Over the next few days, Ethan found himself driving to Grace Haven more often than to his office. He'd tell his assistant to reschedule meetings, push deadlines, and delay board calls, something the old Ethan Hayes would never have done. But lately, the sound of stock updates and investor chatter felt meaningless compared to the quiet laughter of one homeless girl trying to rebuild her trust in the world. Lily was changing. Slowly, but undeniably. She'd started helping the shelter staff with chores, folding blankets, reading bedtime stories to the younger kids, even sweeping floors after dinner. Every time Ethan visited, she looked a little brighter, her eyes a little less haunted. One afternoon, he arrived to find her sitting by the window, sketching on a scrap of paper. "That's beautiful," he said, watching her pencil move gently over the page. She smiled shyly. "It's you." He blinked. "Me?" Lily nodded, turning the page around. It was a surprisingly detailed sketch of him kneeling beside her the night they met, the alleyway in shadow, her wrapped in his coat. "I draw things I don't want to forget," she said quietly. "That night was the first time someone saw me, not like trash." The words hit deeper than any compliment he'd ever received. He swallowed the lump in his throat, managing a faint smile. "I'm glad I found you, Lily." "Maybe I was supposed to be found," she said. They shared a silence that didn't need filling. Outside, children laughed in the courtyard. For a fleeting second, it almost felt like peace. But peace, as life often reminded Ethan, was fragile. That evening, as he prepared to leave, the shelter director pulled him aside. "Mr. Hayes, may I speak with you?" "Of course." "It's about Lily," she began hesitantly. "We've been trying to get her into a program, social services, foster care, maybe schooling. But her documentation is complicated. We can't find any birth record, no ID, nothing. It's as if she doesn't exist on paper." Ethan frowned. "How is that possible?" "She's probably moved too much, maybe born without proper registration. It happens." "So, what happens now?" The woman sighed. "Without identity, she can't attend school, apply for housing, or get medical care. She'll stay here for now, but long term." Ethan interrupted. "No, she's not staying stuck in the system. I'll handle it." The woman gave him a weary smile. "You can't buy her an identity, Ethan, but maybe you can help her find it." That night, Ethan sat in his car long after leaving the shelter. Rain whispered against the windshield as memories flooded back. The times his mother struggled with bills, the way his life turned only when someone believed in him. He knew what he had to do. The next morning, Lily found him waiting outside the shelter with 2 cups of hot chocolate. "Morning," he said. "I was thinking we could go somewhere." "Where?" He smiled. "To start finding out who you really are." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I want to help you find your family," he said gently. "Your mother, your past, whoever's out there." For a long time, Lily said nothing. Then she whispered, "What if there's nothing to find?" Ethan smiled sadly. "Then we'll make something new." They drove in silence for a while, the city passing by in a blur of motion and memory. Somewhere deep inside, both of them knew this wasn't just about paperwork or names. It was about belonging. About healing what the world had forgotten. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. The next few days blurred into long drives and longer silences. Ethan took Lily to the local social records office, then to hospitals, schools, and even old neighborhood centers, anywhere that might hold a piece of her past. Each place ended the same way. Polite smiles, fruitless searches, and quiet apologies. No record under that name. The clerk would say again and again. Lily tried to act unfazed, but each rejection left a shadow in her eyes. Ethan could see it, that small, invisible ache of being forgotten by the world. One evening, they sat on a park bench overlooking the city skyline. The wind was gentle, brushing Lily's hair across her face. She watched the city lights like someone trying to remember what light used to feel like. "I used to think the stars could hear me," she said softly. "When Mom left, I talked to them every night. I thought maybe she was looking at the same sky somewhere." Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe she was. She shook her head. If she was, she didn't answer. He wanted to tell her something comforting, something wise, but instead, he simply said, "Sometimes silence is an answer, not the one we want, but the one that lets us grow." She looked at him curiously. "Did someone ever leave you?" Ethan's jaw tightened. The answer came slower than he expected. "Yes, my father, when I was 10. He just didn't come home one day." Lily's eyes softened. "Did it hurt?" He nodded. "Every day. Until I realized I couldn't spend my life waiting for someone who already made their choice." She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "I think that's what I need to learn too." The city's hum filled the silence between them. Car horns, laughter, distant sirens. Life moving on, as it always did. The next morning, Ethan received a call. "Mr. Hayes, we found something," said a voice on the other end. He froze. "About Lily?" "Yes. There's a missing child record from 7 years ago. A girl named Lillian Mae Parker. Age matches. Description matches too." Ethan's heart pounded. Where was she from? Riverton. Small town, 2 hours north. He hung up and turned to Lily, who sat across the room reading an old magazine. "Pack a bag," he said gently. "We're going on a trip." Her brow furrowed. "Why?" "I think we found where you came from." The drive to Riverton was quiet. The countryside rolled by in soft greens and golds, the kind of view that belonged in someone's memory, not a highway. When they arrived, the air smelled of rain-soaked earth and pine. They found the address listed in the report, a small, faded house with boarded windows. It looked abandoned, but the mailbox still had a name, Parker. Lily stepped out of the car slowly. Her hands trembled as she touched the rusted gate. This was home. Ethan nodded. Maybe once. The door creaked as they pushed it open. Inside, dust floated in the air like ghosts of old memories. The living room was empty except for a torn sofa and a few forgotten toys in a corner. Lily walked toward them, kneeling down. Her fingers brushed over a small stuffed rabbit, missing an ear, but still smiling. She gasped softly. "This was mine." Ethan watched as her expression shifted, from shock to sadness, then to something deeper. A realization. "She really left," she whispered, "and never came back." He wanted to reach for her, but before he could, she sank onto the floor, clutching the toy. Why wasn't I enough to stay for? Ethan knelt beside her, unsure if word could fix something that broke so long ago. "Lily, maybe it wasn't about you." Her tears fell quietly onto the dusty floorboards. "Then why does it still feel like it was?" He didn't answer. He simply stayed. Because sometimes silence was the only thing strong enough to hold pain without breaking it further. The following morning, the sunlight poured through the cracks of the old Parker house, chasing away the dust but not the silence. Lily stood in the same spot she had fallen asleep the night before, her mother's empty home echoing the weight of everything left unsaid. Ethan brewed instant coffee on a portable burner he'd brought, the scent filling the air like a small comfort. "You should eat something," he said gently. She shook her head. "I'm not hungry." He didn't push her. Grief had its own appetite, unpredictable and cruel. He simply sat beside her, 2 paper cups between them, and waited. Lily clutched the stuffed rabbit tighter. "She really just left, didn't she?" Ethan exhaled slowly. Maybe she thought it was the only way she could survive. Lily frowned. "By leaving her kid." "People do the wrong thing for the right reason sometimes," he said. "Fear makes them run from the very things they love most." Her eyes glistened. "Then why does love hurt so much?" Ethan looked out the cracked window. "Because the things that heal us usually come with pain first." She was silent after that, tracing the stitches on the rabbit's ear. Hours passed. They cleaned a little, or tried to, Lily found old letters, faded photos, things that once made sense but now only raised more questions. In one envelope, she found a note written in shaky handwriting. "If I don't make it back, please know I love you more than the world let me show." Her breath caught. This is her handwriting. Ethan read it beside her. "Then she didn't stop loving you, Lily. She just couldn't come back." Tears welled again, not of rage this time, but of release. "I hated her for so long," she whispered. "But maybe she was just lost." Ethan rested a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to hate her anymore. You can let her rest, and maybe let yourself start over." Lily nodded slowly. The weight she'd carried for years seemed to loosen just a little. They drove back toward the city in silence. Halfway there, Ethan pulled over near a quiet lake surrounded by willow trees. The reflection of the sky shimmered on the water like something sacred. "Why did we stop?" Lily asked. "Because I think we both need to say goodbye," he said softly. He handed her a small glass jar. Inside it, folded neatly, was a note she'd found. Lily knelt by the water. Her fingers trembled as she opened the jar, whispering through her tears. "Goodbye, Mom. I forgive you." She let the paper float away, carried by the ripples until it disappeared into light. Ethan watched silently, his own eyes wet. Sometimes healing wasn't loud. It was a quiet surrender of holding on long enough to finally let go. After a while, she turned to him. "Thank you for finding me." He smiled faintly. "Maybe you found me, too." For the first time since they met, she smiled without sorrow. "Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive, if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply." Days turned into weeks, and Lily began to change in quiet, beautiful ways. The shadows beneath her eyes softened. She laughed more, small bursts at first, like a language she was relearning. Ethan noticed how she started holding her head higher, how her steps no longer carried the weight of survival but the rhythm of living. Ethan enrolled her in a small art program run by one of his foundation partners. "You've got a gift," he told her. "You should let the world see it." At first, Lily refused. "I don't belong there. They're all normal kids." He smiled. "Normal is overrated." Eventually, she agreed. Her drawings began to feel sketchbooks, not of pain or alleys or hunger anymore, but of hope. Children running through parks, mothers hugging their daughters, sunsets over cities you wanted to visit someday. Ethan watched her bloom, quietly proud. Yet, deep inside, a different feeling stirred, one he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Fatherly affection, a kind of love that asked for nothing in return. One evening, she came running into his office, clutching her sketchbook. "They picked my painting," she said, breathless. "It's going in the city exhibition next week." Ethan's face lit up. "Lily, that incredible." "They said it made them cry," she added with a shy grin. He laughed softly. "That means it's real." But beneath his pride, something heavier lingered. The thought of losing her, of her growing beyond the world where he could protect her, both thrilled and terrified him. That night, Ethan sat by his window, city lights glowing beneath him. His phone buzzed, a message from Lily. "Good night. Thank you for giving me a life again." He stared at the words for a long time, then typed back, "Good night, kiddo. You gave me one too." The night air felt lighter somehow. A few days later, the exhibition arrived. The gallery buzzed with people, art critics, photographers, children clutching paint-stained hands. Lily stood nervously beside her canvas, a painting of two figures, one adult, one child, standing together under a single umbrella as rain fell around them. The placard read, "Found in the rain." Ethan's chest tightened. She'd painted them. As people admired her work, Lily turned to him. "Do you think she'd be proud of me?" she asked. He smiled softly. "I know she would be." For a long moment, neither spoke. There was nothing left to fix, just a shared stillness that felt like peace. Later that night, as they drove home, Lily leaned her head against the window. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to think being rich meant having everything. But you taught me something different." Ethan glanced at her. "What's that?" She smiled faintly. "That being rich means having someone who cares." The words settled deep into him. All the boardrooms, penthouses, and accolades he'd once thought defined success, none of them compared to that single sentence. They drove on, headlights cutting through the quiet night. The rain began to fall again, soft and familiar, not cold this time, but cleansing. Ethan looked at Lily and whispered, almost to himself, maybe love really does find us when we're broken enough to need it. If you believe love still wins, comment amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. Months slipped by like pages turning in a book they had written together. Lily had moved into a small apartment provided by one of Ethan's youth programs, not as a charity case, but as part of her new life, one she was building with her own hands. She still visited him every weekend, sketchbook in hand, bringing with her stories about classes, new friends, and how she wanted to teach art to kids who'd grown up like her, forgotten, unseen, but still capable of color. Ethan would listen, smiling quietly, the pride in his chest too heavy to speak of. Somewhere along the way, she'd become more than just someone he helped. She was family, the piece of his life he hadn't realized was missing. One evening, she brought him a small wrap gift. "It's nothing big," she said shyly. He unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a framed painting, their first night together, recreated in brushstrokes and warmth. The alley wasn't dark anymore. In her version, the streetlights glowed softly, the rain shimmered, and both of them stood under a single umbrella, smiling. "I changed it," Lily said quietly, "because that's how I like to remember it. Not the part where I was cold and scared, but the part where you found me." Ethan swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "It's perfect," he whispered. She smiled. "You taught me something, you know." "Oh? What's that?" "That kindness doesn't just save the person you give it to," she said softly. "Sometimes it saves you too." Ethan's voice caught in his throat. "You have no idea how true that is." They sat in silence for a while. No tragedy, no pain, just a quiet hum of life moving forward. The city outside their window was alive with light, and somewhere in that glow, both of them had finally found home. As Lily stood to leave, she paused by the door. "Ethan?" "Yes." If Mom could see me now, I think she'd finally smile. He nodded, his heart full. "And if she could see me now," he said softly, "she'd know I finally learned what it means to be rich." She laughed, that bright, unguarded laugh he'd grown to love, and stepped into the night, her reflection fading into the gold of the streetlights. Ethan stayed there a moment longer, staring at the painting in his hands. In it, he saw every choice, every ache, every miracle that had brought them here. And for the first time in years, he whispered a prayer, not for wealth, not for success, but for gratitude. Somewhere out there, a girl once lost in the dark had found her light again, and a man, long hardened by the world, had remembered how to feel. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be a way of saying, "I felt you,"